we have this choice, and we have all these people that come to us, and they're like, people want to invest in real estate. Hey, you want to invest in my deal? We can do it through your IRA. And so most of these, I want to take it step by step so that everybody understands the whole entire process. You get pitched by a syndicator to, hey, put $50,000 of your $50,000. We won't even discuss where it's coming from, whether it's qualified or not. $50,000 into my deal, and I don't have 50,000. Well, do you have 50,000 in your retirement plan, like a 401k or an IRA? Oh yeah, I do. And the guy's been contributing this money every quarter or however into his Fidelity account. Okay, so he thinks he's just buying mutual funds, and that's how he's doing it. How does he get the money from Fidelity into that guy's syndicated deal through an IRA?
So think of it kind of, we kind of use the analogy or example of, it's like ordering at Chipotle, right? Think about how their menu works, right? You go there and it's like, pick your start. Do you want tacos? Do you want a bowl, or do you want a burrito, right? And it's kind of like that here, because what type of account you select with us is going to dictate kind of how the money moves.
Okay.
Here's the difference between the checkbook LLC, the direct through the custodian, and the solo 401k.
Okay.
If I can take just a minute, I'll give a quick primer. So let's start with the direct through the custodian. So the kind of traditional, most standard way that people buy real estate is directly through a custodian, just like you buy stocks directly through a custodian. You want to buy a stock, you go to Schwab, you tell Schwab, buy me Microsoft. Schwab buys you Microsoft, they hold it, they put it on your statement, and life goes on.
Yeah.
If you want to buy real property, Schwab says, we don't hold that, right? So if you want to do that through a company like NuView, right, you would move your IRA from Schwab to NuView, no tax, no penalty. You're just choosing a different custodian. And you would say, NuView, buy me 123 Main Street instead of buying me shares of Microsoft, and we would buy it on your behalf. There's some moving parts, right? Real estate works a little differently than clicking a button, but you get the general premise.
Right.
We would hold it. We would be your custodian. We would charge you a fee, just like Fidelity charges you a fee to do it. And we would give you a statement every year, that shows that you own a piece of real estate. The second way that people, that's direct through the custodian, pretty straightforward. And you could do that with stocks, bonds, mutual funds, just like you could do that with real estate, syndicated real estate, promissory notes, private equity. It doesn't matter what the asset class is.
Any type of investment, any type of investment.
The LLC model is really designed more for active investors. So if you were just going to put $50,000 into a syndication through your IRA, candidly, it wouldn't make sense to go set up an LLC. Because what an LLC does is an LLC says, instead of my IRA owning the properties, right, 1, 2, and 3, the IRA invests all the money into an LLC that is set up. The client becomes the manager of.
Okay, so let me just say the LLC would not be 123 Main Street LLC. It would be Charles Dobbins LLC.
You got it.
Okay.
So it would be, let's just say, Charles Dobbins IRA at NuView. Right? Charles Dobbins LLC for simplicity. Then you would direct NuView, instead of buying the property or properties, you would direct us, take the $100,000 that I have in my NuView IRA, buy the shares, right? 100% of the shares of Charles Dobbins LLC. And now Charles Dobbins, on behalf of his IRA, can buy the individual assets. Now, the reason that you wouldn't do that for like a one-off passive investment is, why pay to set up the LLC? Why pay the annual LLC fee? And why take responsibility for tracking your investments in the LLC when you're really just investing passively? Most of the people using the LLC they're buying 3 or 4 rental properties. There's lots of moving parts. It's easier for them to have more control. So the LLC is more of the active investor's approach to using IRA money.
Okay. So wait a minute here. So that money, I can move $100,000 into my Charles Dobbins LLC, and then we can put it in different buckets. But is that, so the money, the 100,000 or so, we'll just use 100,000 for round numbers. That is qualified money, or it can be qualified money.
Yep.
For those people that don't understand, that means there's a tax benefit to it. In other words, I'm getting the same advantage as an IRA or a 401k when I say qualified. So when I move the money out of my salary from my company and I put it into Charles Dobbins LLC, because that's my investment, that still is a qualified transaction.
Yeah, and in fact, so there's some nuances, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but yes. So the idea here is you're taking Charles Dobbins IRA, which is qualified money.
Yeah.
You're buying 100% of a newly created LLC specifically to hold the assets of the IRA. And then the LLC, in theory, right, is an extension of the IRA. And now the LLC buys, let's say, property A, property B, property C, property D, or whatever the investments are. And the benefit for the customer in doing that is they don't have to go through the custodian every time they want to buy the property. They simply buy them all directly inside the LLC. But because the LLC is wholly owned by the IRA, all the tax benefits still are protected over all of those assets. But one very important caveat is the rules of IRAs apply to the LLC because it's wholly owned by the IRA. So you still can't self-deal or create prohibited transactions. And the second thing is, if Charles Dobbins is going to manage that LLC, you're taking on some significant responsibilities, right? As they say, with great power comes great responsibility. So it's not worth the time and effort, because remember, you're going to pay to set up the LLC. You're going to pay an annual LLC fee in the state that the LLC is structured in. And then you have added work because instead of NuView as your custodian, keeping your documents and your paperwork and all of the activity for your assets, we're only doing that for your LLC because that's the only asset your IRA owns. The LLC is responsible to track and keep, records of everything that happens within the LLC. So we typically only see the LLC structure set up for customers that tend to be a little more savvy. And two, customers that are more active. Again, I would never go through this process and use the LLC model if I'm investing in 1 or 2 passive syndications. It just doesn't make sense.